So welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight. I'm Judith Kober, and today our guest, of course, is Jill Madsen. She has been here a couple of times, and I wanted to have her back on the show to talk about frequencies. And so, Jill, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And it's so exciting to bring new ideas and concepts. And so thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So we haven't talked in a while. What is new with you? Do you have any exciting projects that you did this year? Oh yeah, okay, go ahead. Tell us a little bit.
Okay, I just published Names of God from the Jewish tradition, and they believe that their letters, the Hebrew letters, the ancient Hebrew letters, are actually sounds of creation. And this dovetails with most every religion around the world. So that when you chant or sing or say names of God, you're creating a vibratory pattern. And each name of God, if you will, is like a color of the rainbow. And they're all subcomponents of the whole. And I've translated the shapes into sounds. And so I think for the first time we have names of God and the sounds, and they're also associated with angels. So that one's called Divine Invocations. And then I have a new book out called Home of Power. And Home of Power, I started to hear sounds from shapes. So I could hear whether if I'm putting a picture on the wall, if it was the right dimensions, or hear if I needed to move this bed, or hear some dissonance and then find maybe a certain element or something to place there to make harmony. And with my Is a Sound, the book is kind of like pick a goal. Do you want a relationship? Do you want abundance? Are you having heart health? Well, then create a heart health room. You can literally do that. You can do it with the shape of the room, with dividers. And I'm sensitive to inexpensive ways as well, and how to move furniture for energy flows and get rid of noxious energy and 5G, and how to use the frequencies of shapes for very precise things you want in your life. In other words, everything is energy. So you live in your space over and over again. What is that energy? Like, for example, I think there were several studies in Europe where they went and studied ley line crossings. Mm-hmm. And ley line crossings were under 100% of all the cancer patients' beds. So things that we don't necessarily consider can really contribute to our health and well-being. And so I think it's a really exciting book. It's like a musical feng shui. And, with feng shui, we think to China, but, the Hindus had Vastashusa, every culture, the American Indians, you go back and everybody's creating a song in their environment that's very healing uniquely for them. So that's my new book, Home of Power. And then I got a couple more things coming out soon. In a couple months, I hope to have out a sound collection of beautiful music with the God gene. The God gene is literally a gene, and you can read about it in Dean Hammer's book, The God Gene. And you can find it, and Sherry Edwards has mapped its frequency, its protein and activator. And if you have a strong God gene in your genetic core, you're very spiritual. I love that kitty. Sorry.
Yeah, that is, she has to get back my attention.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, anyway. So I have that in sound, and it will massage and develop your God gene. And sometime after that, it'll take me a while to get it together. The music's done. I have the music of the ancient zodiac, which would be the Sumerian, way before our Western astrology, but the Sumerian astrology, in its inception, astrology was not just look and see, but it was diagnose and repair and heal. and they assign tones to sections of the night sky. And so I've created music on those tones and mapped it into modern science. So you can look at what you're missing. You can look at your astrology chart if you're an astrologer, or if you're an astrologer and have clients. You could do a person's astrology and then give them balancing tones for anything that's negative. Or if you just want to know what the frequencies are you're missing, there's I'm offering like a little voice analysis, and then we can map up the zodiac zones for harmony and balance. So that's kind of cool. And then finally, I'm working on a book on time. I'm going to call it Waves of Time. Now, my book, The Lost Waves of Time, was about music as vibratory influence, energy, designer, creator throughout time. And the big thing that I learned in that adventure was that as you go through history and you look at the number pattern underneath music, like frequencies, 432 hertz, that's a number, 4 beats in a measure, harmonics have a mathematic pattern, intervals relate to fractions. So when you look at the underlying mathematics of music, and it all has mathematic patterns, during different great epics, they had characteristic numbers. So like the Greeks had all their music built around the number 4, ancient China 5, ancient Sumeria 6, and so on. And I was wondering, well, how that can't be coincidence. And over time, they unfolded sequentially, the numbers. And so I just wondered, were they inspired and by whom? And I think it changed my mind. I think I've decided, what is that grand vibrational influence? That would be time. And science has confirmed it's fact. Time changes. It's not always the same duration. And if you change the duration of something, you change its frequency. And the ancients show us that time is coming in like a spiral, with a nice Fibonacci makeup and sounds. And in the book, I'm proposing that time, the grand vibrational influence, does change. And that's when things become of an age or popular or become, that's why things go viral. You know, somebody hits the idea that everybody now tunes to. And we don't perceive time as a frequency, but yet time tunes us. Mm-hmm. And I go into so many different things about time. One being, many of the ancient structures were tuned to time, like the yugas. The yugas were tuned in, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I believe it was in Cambodia, maybe, Angkor Wat. And you'll see that the dimensions of the grounds, the buildings, the steps, the gardens, the rooms, they're mirroring time. And even in some of the finds in the Middle East, again, you'll see they match star systems, and then they build one on top, and then they match star systems and they build another one. Well, that's because the time changes. You know, they're tuning to time. It's like a clock. It's a vibrational pattern to tune to time. And why would we tune to time? Well, one, it feels really good. It would be such a big frequency, such a big harmonic, that it, you know, it resonates and affects us all. And so it's kind of like singing the same song. It's very empowering. So that one's coming out. That'll be a little bit longer. I'm almost done. So they're my new projects.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you say time changes, it's you also include the length.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about time periods. So that's what I found in the Lost Ways of Time. Like in the legends, they talk about Atlantis tuning to the number 7 and 8. And in fact, those were the distance between some of their notes. And then you get into Samaria, and of course, Samaria is going to have a duration in which it's of age. And it's kind of like when the time passes, it falls. Maybe look at our lives, we come of age. And then when our time passes, and then, perhaps we incarnate at a new time. And you could think of the ancient religious projects where they tuned to the sounds of God, be it the Jewish names that I did. I put the Sephiroth of the tree of life that was Egyptian prior to being Jewish. I have that in sound. I have the runes of the Druids in sound. So there's many societies that come up with sounds and shapes that when put together, they say, this is all the frequencies. This is the whole rainbow. This is all the energy that makes a template that represents us all, the complete hologram, all that is God, whatever you want to do. And in essence, that's done with time as well. Because if everything's energy, then everything's got a frequency because you count its pulsation. I don't know, does that help?
What would you tell somebody that says, yeah, well, let's say we have people competing in a sprint. And so when we measure the time, well, 60 seconds is always 60 seconds. There is no change.
Okay. I think that's because the time frequencies are so big. So think that, they can take a clock that can't, that will be accurate, put it on a jet, and yes, it is indeed faster, but maybe a portion of a second. So technically, it's just such a big wave that we don't really measure it. And what I'm suggesting is that time goes on a great big spiral, and perhaps our consciousness or space kind of goes with it, that they're kind of intricately related. So we wouldn't be able to measure that with a normal stopwatch. But I also think that I've observed different characteristics of epics that have different number patterns in their music. So people or a civilization that tunes to hip hop or rap is a different civilization than tunes to Om Mani Padme Hum.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're only exposed to this type of music, aka that rhythmic pattern, those set of frequencies, you become like Om Mani Padme Hum. You become more calm. You become more peaceful. Whereas the hip hop is much more energizing. It's like a cup of coffee, oral caffeine. And so one of the things that I've noted is the first time that the world, if you will, stopped using nature patterns as music was about the rise of the classical music. We dropped the ancient scales that created a spiral, which I believe is like time. And when the mathematics changed of our music from a spiral to that of a circle, we lost our disconnect with nature. And again, it's only little bits of frequencies that are off, but our bodies are very exacting. And if we lose a connection with nature, we lose a connection with nature. And I just find it interesting. We adopt the equal temperament scale for economic reasons, for ease of use reasons. And then we have the Industrial Revolution, where we plunder her, where a tree is no longer a spirit, a tree is money. And when the numbers get faster together, so for the longer periods of time, I believe time mirrors a harmonic pattern, just like the yugos go from 4, 3, 2, 1. The 4 period's obviously longer than the 1. I'm saying there's the same pattern in time. So as the time numbers get faster, so instead of your rhythm being like this, When you get to the place where time pulses like this, there's still 60 seconds, but more happens because it's more of like a jackhammer. So, and if my theory on harmonics is time is a harmonics, we're in the days of enharmonics, and that would tell us why Nostradamus, John the Beloved in Revelations, and all of these major world predictions predict apocalyptic stories now, because we're in enharmonics that are very, very dissonant, very fast and powerful. So what I'm suggesting is that when time has this type of a punch, because the frequencies are closer together, stuff changes really fast and dissonance increases. And then I take it a little further, because just by looking at ancient timekeeping, which all mirrors the night sky and the cosmos, they have, like in music and time are pretty much the same thing. So like in music and the old scales, in nature, you have an octave, C, C, but in nature, it's C, C, just a little tiny bit up. It's called a Pythagorean coma. Likewise, in time, you have a year, you have your 360 days, let's say 30 days each period, and then you have like a leap year and that little extra bit at the end, creating that spiral. So it's not symmetrical. And the Chinese knew, ancient Chinese, Lao Tzu, the Greeks, the Hindus, everybody knows and has different names, the ancient Egyptians, for this Pythagorean coma, this conversion to make the spiral in sound and in time. And they use it for their musical instruments and time interchangeably. They're like hand in glove. And so if you look at a big cycle, like a yuga or a Platonic year, which the Chinese would describe as 26,000 roughly, the Pythagorean coma, it's got many names, Lima, Buk Nunu in Egypt. Anyway, you get to this Pythagorean coma, and there's a time period for that Pythagorean coma. But the time period of a Pythagorean coma in a 26,000 year cycle is going to be about 32 years or 22 years. You know, it's proportionately a small part of that big cycle, but it would be a number of years for us. And so I believe that that's what's going on. We're getting towards the end of a harmonic, which means it gets more and more dissonant. But as it comes into zero, it's like the new harmonics begin. It's like sunrise and sunset. It's not 1 second and it goes boom, night light. You gradually see the rays, you get a little more, you get a little more. So you have 24 hours in a day, but yet sunrise might be 20 minutes. And I'm kind of likening that 20 minutes to like the shift to the new octave or the change period. And it takes time. So I believe that if time is sound, which I propose, we're at the end harmonics. That's why everybody was predicting, because they could say in time, this is when all the dissonance is going to be released. In a philosophical way, this is the time when we're purging. Before we go up to the new octave, we're letting go of the old and what doesn't serve us in governments and religions, individually, as countries. And we're releasing all this density and negativity, and we're preparing for a new age.
Yeah.
Time is carrying us there. So the Pied Piper is time.
Yeah. So you know the saying, as above, so below. I totally agree when you talk about this dissonance, and that is on all levels. Yeah, it has reached a point where I have to say, especially here in my country right now, that something like common sense is totally gone. It's out of the window. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, that's really steep. So now I'm wondering what's going on above that we have here below all these, yeah.
Okay. When you look at mathematics and music, dissonance is two frequencies close together. So
Okay.
like in a harmonic chain, let me even go back further. A harmonic, every sound has a harmonic. We hear one sound and we think it's one sound, but it's not. It's more like a symphony of sounds. So you pluck that guitar string and you hear the whole note, the note of the guitar string, and then you hear partials, lemmas, not partials, not lemmas, harmonics, or partials are the two names. And it's just partial frequencies. So you have a host of other frequencies and they all combine. And we don't really hear them as separate. We hear them as one, but they're very precise and they're like components of the whole. So when you're in the end harmonics, see, like the first harmonics start out to be the biggest. The first harmonic's an octave. The second one's 5 of our musical notes away. The second might be 3 and so forth. And you keep getting smaller. When you get to the end harmonics, they're right next to each other. And it's like, it's like everybody's scratching their fingers on that chalkboard. And because the notes are close together. Now, when you start to take notes up musical octaves, think of we're energy, so as above, so below. So above is also energy. Once you go up octaves, and in my Lost Ways of Time, and I read about this music, and there's a whole lot more coming out about Atlantis and Lemuria or earlier cultures. They're interpreting a lot of the stuff in Central and South America and Southern India. I mean, all kinds of stuff is coming out. And they talk about music that has great distance between the notes. Well, if you have, let's say, 4 or 5 of our notes between their smallest note, several things. One is you got to be clairaudient because you're not going to have too many notes in hearing range. And second, dissonance is going to drop out because dissonance needs to be real close together. As a musician, I try very hard to play in tune. I don't always succeed. And I do know that when I'm performing, that if I go fast enough, people aren't going to notice. It doesn't mean I want to make an intonation problem, but I do know I do make them. And when I'm live, people don't notice. When I'm recorded and you can slow it down, then you can notice. But we only have like so much perception bandwidth in our brain. And if there's a whole lot going on, you can miss a little dissonance here and there. Like an orchestra, there might be 40 violins. Are they all perfectly in tune? Oh, probably never. But you don't notice because it's just way too much. So first of all, we don't always perceive itsy bitsy amounts of dissonance. And then when you start to create music where it's impossible to get those notes close together, dissonance just drops out. So think that our life right now is a song, even all this nasty dissonance. You take it up an octave and another octave, and the notes get further apart. And there's no such thing as dissonance. It's more like change.
Yeah. Okay. So when we look into the Eastern traditions, for instance, there is a strong belief that the syllable om is the beginning.
Sorry.
The postman coming.
Sorry, all.
Yeah, no problem. No,
She's charge.
Yeah.
And my husband is watering the plant. It's not even a stranger.
Yeah, maybe they want to help.
Maybe she's protecting me from a paper bag or something like that.
So, and we have something similar in the Bible, for instance, when it says in the beginning was the word. Yeah, well, a word is sound as well.
Right.
So, do you think that at those junctures, religion is telling us something about the entire process and how important sound is for the process of creation?
Most ancient religions credit creation to sound. The Spider Woman, and I believe it's the Hopi Indians, the Egyptians credit creation to the word in one of their myths. You'll find that same story in the ancient Chinese, in the Hindu. It's everywhere. So it's not just a religion, it's a worldwide ancient idea. And I just recently got a hold of some palm texts that are like, I don't know, 10,000, 12, 15,000 years old, really old stuff coming out of southern India in a language, again, now extinct, perhaps Lemuria. And they show sound as a vibration and, being created by sound. But you know how in cymatics, you can put sand on a plate and then put a sound underneath, and the sand will vibrate from the sound, go out to the edge, and then come back in. And places the sand will, just because of the wave interference pattern, it's going to build up some places and decrease in others. And it forms patterns. Like if you subject that plate with the sand on it to the sound of Om over and over again, it'll form the signal for Om. So the ancient languages were not symbolic, but they had that link between sound and between creation. But still, we have a hard time, I think, mentally grasping all of creation. But we are forcing in that experiment sound to create on a 2D plate. We're not really advanced enough to put sound in a cube and then say Om and watch what forms. So I think sound is the vibratory force that creates everything. And in time, as our technology improves, we'll be able to observe it in the 3D universe as well. And we do in other forms. Certain sounds can make you sick. Certain sounds can make you better. We absorb sound, and so we can create health or illness by exposing ourselves to certain sounds. And in a way, a sound can affect our entire body. I have music to tune your muscles. I have music to tune your organs. And some of these are somewhat science-based. And you absorb the sound and it changes your physicality. So yes, I do think that in a broad sense of sound, meaning sound that might be too low in volume for us to hear, and sound maybe a little bit out of our hearing range, but everything's energy, and that can be expressed as sound in more of a broader definition. And do I think creation happened with energy? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just the other day, I watched a video and it was titled, "We Have Found the Magic Frequency." So, and it was a group of scientists, and they started with 100 hertz and then 101, 2, blah, 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 blah. And it took them months. And so then they found out after several months that all cancer cells are vulnerable if you expose them to 100,000 to 300,000 hertz. And then they filmed it. So the cancer cell, and then they exposed them to that frequency. The cancer cell was in the process to split, and then that cancer cell that came out of the first one, it popped. It was it disappeared. Then the next one that wanted to form, they crashed that one as well. And I guess the third round was the original, yeah, let's say the mother cell was crushed as well. So, and I thought, how amazing. And but I have to say, I don't see in in the medical field that they are jumping all over it. And hey, yeah, let's
Actually, that's in a way an old experiment, in that Royal Rife was
mm,
doing that in the 40s in the United States. And
yeah,
he was using live blood, not taking a sample, so that it would breathe and it would pulse. And he had some type of crystal. He had better magnification than his peers. And so he could measure the cycle and was doing just that, giving you so like 10 cycles per second times 1/10 cancel each other out. So he could measure the cancer and give you the counter cancer, just cancel the wave out. And he was curing, according to his reports and books and other people on his camp, 800 out of 800 cases of cancer. But then there's other books that are written that say that the AMA defamed him, stole his work, because there's a lot of money in cancer.
yeah, sure.
So there's that. And then also, if you look at the work of Fabian McMahon, and he did aura Carillion photography on cancer cells. And he did somewhat a similar thing. He would show the live cancer cell and then expose it to all these different frequencies. And he would find one that would make it explode. And there it is. So if my book, Secret Sounds, it talks about sounds in the body, and I'm featuring the wonderful work of Sherry Edwards. She has extraordinary hearing, so she can hear cells talk. So if you have diabetes, you need a certain prescription of frequencies to heal diabetes, and it comes out of your ears, and science has confirmed that, calling it acoustic emission. Well, she hears them. And since she can hear someone's diagnosis, she also knows that, like if she has a headache, one tone makes it better, one makes it worse. So she spent her whole life taking her gift and putting it on the computer so that you and I can access her hearing without having her ears. And in essence, it's accurate, it's precise. Let's say you go to the doctors and you have a pain in your back. Well, maybe it's a pain in your spine, maybe it's in the muscles, maybe it's in the back of your stomach. It's really kind of hard when you're talking about pain to get that right on the money. But sound is quite precise, none of those problems. So it's very accurate, and every frequency has a correlation in our world, and it's all mapped out. So you can look at exactly what you're missing, and then you can prescribe it. And another thing that's very interesting is that the body is very, very precise and wants what it wants. Like I had talked about harmonics of time, but Sherry observes frequencies in the body and finds that most chemical formulas, like digestion, metabolism, metabolic cycles, they're all harmonic cycles. So there's your natural sound and its natural after ripple pattern that we discussed earlier. So, and she finds that if you give a frequency just a little bit off, the formula doesn't work. It does. So she gives one study where she was studying some lady who had crippling arthritis, and she found that the woman needed an isotope of a calcium. And an isotope is just like the exact same thing with maybe just a teeny little bit extra electron or something. Think of an isotope like this. You got 2 batches of chocolate chip cookies and you put an extra dash of salt in one. One is an isotope of the other. They're still chocolate chip cookies, just a tiny bit different. But in sound, you can go down to that detail and diagnose and administer. Furthermore, you could also put on remedies to diseases as downloads. On my site, Jill's Wings of Light, free, I have, and this is thanks to Sherry, how to put this? she and I have worked together to come up with music to kill, like we have one music against Ebola, for example. And normally you do what Royal Rife does, where you figure out what is the frequency of the virus or the disease or the problem and cancel it out. But it didn't work in the coronavirus because a virus is kind of like a group or a strain. It's like when we did Ebola, I think I did maybe 11 different frequencies in songs and music to counter because the different strains. But in coronavirus, they're very accurate. So when you kill this one, it triggers this one. When you kill this one, it triggers this one. So it's designed so that you can't cancel it out. So Sherry, being very clever, watched the body fall apart. Okay, first it was quercetin. Then you find that, I forget, might have this wrong, but I think broccoli maybe. And then it was, it was this and it was that and it was this and it was that. And so I have music with all of those things to boost your immune system, to prevent that from getting in. And then we also came out with another set of free frequencies in music that's very lovely. And that is to strengthen or get rid of inflammation. One of the fallouts from both the vaccine and having actual coronaviruses is that people's inflammation systems, and you'll find that inflammation is the root cause of many major diseases. So those are offered freely. And I guess in summary, music is accurate, it's cheap, it's replicable, it's powerful. We don't credit it, so music will heal us and then we'll credit something else. But once we resonate with the idea that we are vibration and energy, and that's what music is, and we can control it precisely to harmonize and balance ourselves, and that equals health on every level.
Yeah, if there wouldn't be any influences on us, they wouldn't use music in films, in advertisement, in, here comes the leader and gives a speech. Get out the fanfares. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'm certainly advocate. Edgar Casey said, the medicine of the future, it's sound.
Yeah, there's also something very interesting going on in the field of light and phototherapy, and I'm using it right now and have for quite a while. And what I find so easy with that is it's just a tiny patch, and then I apply it to my acupressure points, or let's say a specific region is hurting, then I put it there. So do we have something similar with sound that makes it so, accessible, so easy? Or does it have? Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to have two separate answers to that. One is I have all kinds of tuning forks, and even just the vibratory massage, regardless of its particular cycle per second, but I will put the tuning forks. So like a tuning fork comes up and then has the two prongs. So I'll use the vibrations from the prongs to alter your aura. And your aura is kind of like a soft healing. Let's say you have cancer, you're going to have a big dark spot if you have Carillion photography done. And so it'll take a while, but maybe 10, 15 minutes, I'm saying is a while, is that sound's going to come in and start to break up that blockage. When the blockage is broken in your aura, it slowly, subtly begins to resonate with the issue inside of your body. So it's a soft, gentle healing, aura healing, and it works. Sometimes it might be a little bit too slow for what's needed. Then the other thing I do is I take the base of the fork. And there's special forks. I even have like an ohm fork on my site where it's made to take all the vibration into the stem. And then you put the stem right on that acupressure point. And it's really kind of cool. Like you put one on your acupressure, you can feel it go right up. And let's say it only goes to there. Well, that's because you have blockage there. So you just keep it on, and in a little while you're up to here. You keep it on, you know, and you just start to open up the channels. When you open up the channels, that's health. So that's one way of doing it. I've also seen people use sound in different formats. Like we just assume all sounds here. And your sound is received by your ears, and it's transported to the nervous system. Think of the nervous system like your body's internet. A lot of information, fast, high speed, high frequency power lines, you know, zoom, 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 zoom. And it averages data. And that's extremely important, because we just talked about the lady with a certain type of arthritis that needed an isotope, just a teeny tweak on maybe a harmonic in a sound. And that was the thing that was for her, the only thing that was going to heal her. And it indeed did. But so when you want to get it very accurate, what you get in this way is all your harmonics are going to be averaged. And a lot of your body processes of harmonics, say digestion, well, is that important? As we age, people eat good food some, but they don't use it because their body doesn't digest it. It's got to be in the right form. It's got to be this, got to be that, got to be this. But you start listening to it and listening to harmonics, and it tunes up the process. I don't know if that makes any sense, because the process has a mathematical pattern. That's why people like singing bowls or crystal tuning forks, because once you hit that singing bowl, for a split second, you hear the root note. All the rest is harmonics. And they're not altered like, you know, like our music is. So all the music we get on TV, movie, YouTube, video, phone, all altered, all GMO harmonics, because that's what digital does.
Yeah, sure.
And so then you wonder, how do we get harmonics? Why do we even like Tibetan bowls? And notice people like them live. You don't do a sound bath on a CD.
Yeah, no.
So you like them live because the sound patterns travel on your skin. You ingest sound on your skin, and you do an analog fashion. So you're getting your harmonics in here. You're not necessarily hearing it, but you're healing from it. You also get it through resonance. So like I have one C, deep wave body healing. So we're playing the sounds and the harmonics from a hospital per organ, per body organ. And we're giving that through resonance. So let's say the heart is, you know, a certain A flat, B flat, and then it's going to have all the harmonics. So the whole unit of the heart is going to be this, average it up to like a B flat, and then you have the harmonic pattern afterwards, and maybe the first harmonics, the ventricle, and the second harmonics, a valve, and the, you know what I mean? So like the whole unit becomes a cohesive sound envelope. And in the music, I'm giving that to the body through resonance. Like we sometimes think of resonance as having a violin here, having a violin here, A, and then this A sings even though we don't touch this violin. So energy has like this invisible gerbil tunnel, and it goes from one violin to another. But so does a song. You know, that's why we sing mantras in the Hindu tradition for thousands of years, because we sing them with love and they have good vibrational patterns, and the whole pattern resonates then with love. And so it's impervious to time. Isn't that cool? And you can tap into this pool of people of love. It's like, if you can think of it in our Western tradition with Silent Night, you know, just thinking of the song, you kind of relax, you know, because thousands of people have sung it on Christmas Eve when they've got their most holy wishes and thoughts and peace. And that energy travels. And so with this resonance, you can resonate a whole song, and you can resonate song patterns into your body, and you're not thinking about your ears. I mean, I'm not saying this isn't important. It's critical, but you have other ways. I don't know. That help?
Yeah, I read on your webpage about the snow, the days of snow and how it absorbs sound. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That, you know, when the snow is thick, fresh, very fresh, and I walk around here, wow, it's almost as if somebody put noise canceling phones on your head.
Yes.
Mm,
And I think the snow's different. Like if you're around it when it's snowing and you're full of love, you're going to have different snow than snow on a battlefield.
yeah.
Just like Mizuramoto, how the energy of our emotions, it's almost like maybe water's like a mind or something and it remembers. And so what is snow if not water freezing?
Mhm.
You know, so it also encapsulates probably because we're not out in it, sometimes the frequencies of nature, and it's just soft and beautiful until
Mhm.
it crusts over.
Yeah. So, okay, we have personal frequencies,
Yes.
each of us, and I'm pretty sure there's also a collective frequency
Yes.
composed out of all the other frequencies.
Yes, there's many generic frequencies. So on my site, everything I do there is generic. So you can do drive-by healings just by playing your music in the room. So I work on things like putting light in your aura with Paint Your Soul in Stardust, and that's really good for animals. And another one takes just simply vibrates and finds, locates negativity emotions, and then pulls it out. I've got ones that will be the same as crystals, just kind of like a raising of energy. Um, you know, I talked about the God gene coming out soon. I have a DNA CD that came out recently. I have the frequencies of the nucleotides, the phosphate background, ATP, RNA, and all of the harmonic chains. And our DNA's vibration, which kind of, when you age, kind of goes,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
kind of like your muscles, they kind of go, they get longer, they get flatter. So everything on my site is generic. And if to do specific, you can go right into Sherry's work, and that's the Secret Sounds book. And then my musical astrology will also be very specific. And I want you to think that your specific music is very much like medicine. I'm not going to go to a hospital and go, yippee-yi-yo, look at all these pills and eat them all. You know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
good for them ain't good for me. And
Mhm.
you'll find that you need a certain quantity of frequency sometimes for repair, and individual frequencies are just that. They need to be private. And then in antiquity, there are many systems of sacred geometry, number patterns, and the whole idea in the ancient world is that God made the heavens and the nature, or whatever made heavens and nature. And heaven and nature comes out with patterns and numbers. And that these numbers, think of like the universe as being a grandfather clock the size of the universe, and our solar system being a grandfather clock the size of our solar system. And then in our house, we have a grandfather clock. But the stronger vibration overcomes the lesser. So when they're looking for tuning durations, notes, numbers and music are the same thing, they're converted. So the ancient man would look at patterns of the sky moving. They would look at, you know, trace the map of Venus, and over time she creates a pattern. And they would look to maybe like so as above, more like a breathing pattern, like breathe. We breathe in and breathe out, and that's our individual time span. But the maybe Earth's individual time span is like in for the solstice, out, you know, in one solstice, out, in, out, like breathing twice a year. And it's just so big that, you know, there's resonance and correlations and connections between these different patterns. So the ancient people, and there's a number of systems, would come up with different sacred numbers, like the solfeggio, the 3-6-9 kind of patterns, and the 144, and they have these, the master numbers, 111, 222, particularly numbers that would occur over and over in different ways of measuring nature. They would have this idea that, we're the smaller, this is the grand, and as the grand comes in, it's all energy, and the energy is going to be reflected in its numbers, and the numbers, of course, in the music, and that's going to tune us, because we're the little grandfather clock. So if we want a certain pattern number, or we want a certain frequency, look to heaven and earth and look at their number patterns.
Okay. So how does the personal frequency affect the collective?
Well, maybe we live in a universe, think universe, one song, and we all have our part to sing. And in that regard, it's like looking at an orchestra and saying the second violin person is more important than the cello. Well, that's not so. Every part's important. And every part is critical. It's kind of like if you're going to make white light out of rainbow colors, it's not okay to miss pink because you're not getting white light. So I would say that a lot of times vibratory energy it's a numbers game. If you have a lot of people that come in and they're radiating, let's say F sharp, perhaps they're into abundance, perhaps they're into monetary issues, balance, centering, health. And if you have a bunch of people that are radiating that fundamental frequency, that'll be kind of the viral topic that grabs people, because even subconsciously it vibrates with their life. Where somebody's working on a different lesson might be more attracted to another group. In another example, you have a bunch of geeks getting together and they vibrate together and value smart people and ideas, and perhaps look down on people that aren't as smart as they. And then you find another collection of people gathering, and they're the jocks, and they value that beautiful body and that performance and that athleticism, and they have the same kind of unity and bond. It's kind of like that in terms of frequencies. And I believe that we incarnate in different lives with different tones, individual tones. Perhaps during different phases of our life, we go through different tones, and then it would be time would take us through different tones. And just to give you a little story example, this is taken from Donna Eden. She is a master in seeing auras. So she was saying in the 40s, most people in the United States were radiating green. And this is the time period, right after World War II and I, when we started to manufacture, and the average man got a lot more things. Big companies like General Motors, Ford, we became rich. And so then our final exam would be the Great Depression. So as humanity, we experience a frequency in a positive and a negative manifestation. And we learn that lesson, we learn that wisdom, we learn that compassion. And then we go on to our next lesson. So Donna Eden reports in the 50s, everybody radiating, not everybody, most people radiating blue, particularly women, large families. And, it used to be spare the rod and spoil the child. Now that's abuse. Now you have child welfare. Now you have welfare. Now you have Social Security. Now you're taking care of the handicap, that nurturing blue energy. So what would be the final exam? What would be the end of that tone, that frequency, that individual tone that people would mostly radiating at that time? Well, it would be World War II. And that's because perhaps the lesson of the frequency of G or blue, this nurturing kind of energy, is, I'm a mother and I spoiled my kids. I wish I hadn't, but, it's like true love doesn't enable. When somebody does something wrong or stoops low, says so, stands up, takes whatever hit you get for saying so, and says so. So think about World War II. Everybody's tired from World War I. Nobody wants to get in it again. Hitler's the bad boy, he needs spanked, and nobody's willing to do it. And including the German people, but it's not just the German people. All the Allies didn't want to do it because they're still
well,
from World War I.
Prescott Bush and Henry Ford, they sponsored him financially.
So we allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that people didn't see, it's that people enabled. And that's a lesson in love. And then it's the age of violet, which so now you're talking about and this is the hippies and the Berlin Wall falls and freedom and transformation and putting all your faults out in the paper for everyone to see so you can change them. And so the next frequency, common personal frequency, being, let's say, B. And we're learning about transformation and values and freedom. And so what would be the final exam? Terrorism, for one, takes away your freedom. So
government takes away your freedom.
Yeah, so freedom, we each have our own tones, our own frequencies, our own major tone, but then we group together. And when you get big groups, it's almost like a song unfolds, and you learn the beauty, and then you learn the up and down side. And the end result is that you have compassion and hopefully mercy. You become wise, and if not wise and love and forgiving, does that not undo our negative karma? Does that not lift us all up? Maybe that's the purpose of our individual frequencies. I don't know.
Yeah, so I still wonder on a collective level what we are attracting here right now, because no matter where you go, crisis, we stumble from one emergency into the next. And yeah, it's also very exhausting.
It is.
Especially if you swallow the propaganda hook, line, and sinker. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe that's the lesson of such trauma, is that, in my opinion only, I don't think, we have history for 2,000-3,000 years, and it's pretty shaky a little bit away, where we have this essence of good and evil. And I don't think life always had that. Maybe like two ends of a battery, positive and negative. So like abundance and lack. I mean, I've been poor a lot in my life, and I don't disvalue those times. There's a lot of beautiful things about that. I don't see that as negative for me personally during that time period. And so I think when we go through these traumas, it's like taking a bath. You don't want to hang on to your dirt. You want to kind of let the shower hit you and let it have contact with the dirt, maybe scrub or rub or try to make the contact, and then let it freely go. And we've all had a lot of pain. We've all had a lot of trauma. Name someone who doesn't have heaps of trauma in their background. And we need to feel it and let it go. And the thing about traumatic times is that dissonance can build more dissonance, but it also can locate dissonance inside you in this lifetime, in your childhood, perhaps past lifetime. We're born deathly afraid of water because you drown then. So maybe you need to get in touch with that fear and just let it go and see the internalness of life. And then without that fear, you're less likely to drown. So take this time to not own the negativity. It's like you go to the mall and you come home and you're really tired because you picked up everybody else's crap. And it takes a while to get yourself back together and perk up. And in the same manner, we go through our lives, we're going through this very traumatic time. You turn on the radio and the TV and it's like, oh my God. And the thing is, you don't want to become it.
Yeah.
You know, if you just observe it and learn those skills. And I think particularly light workers who are very sensitive, they need to learn observation, not judgment, not taking it on, not even feeling what another's feeling. You can know what another's feeling, going through, without taking it on. Because like if you're really sick and I go, oh, I can feel
Yeah.
what you're doing, I can't help you because I've just made myself sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I have to say, sometimes that's a little bit complicated not to judge. You know, what's happening here in my country right now is I translate it in totally different words. But here's how I perceive it. We want to crush Russia, and we want Russia to suffer. And in order to achieve that, we shoot ourselves in the head, you know? And of course, these are not the words that are being
Yeah.
used, but then when you look at the actions that those people who make the decisions know very well that we cannot run our industry without Russian gas. Yeah. So, and then I have to say, yeah, sorry, I judge you because you're batshit crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you don't come to the conclusion that you're bad. I'm saying that there's you don't own that energy.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you observe that, in my opinion, you observe the same conclusion, but it's like you're outside of it watching it on a TV. Because if you become too close to it, like the TV comes into your life and becomes you. And who needs all that drama? We can't help when we're full of all the negativity around us.
Yeah. Another question that came to mind, and I think there is a good case to be made. I don't know how you think about that part of the use for the pyramids was sound healing. Can you imagine that was happening?
Sound healing in the pyramids.
Sound healing in the pyramids, yeah. Because for instance, the so-called I think it's the Great Chamber, with the one with the so-called sarcophagus. Yeah, it has extraordinary sound qualities.
Well, a little bit on the pyramids in that every shape creates a sound. This is going to have a sound below my hearing range. I'm not aware of it, but it's all the energy in here is confined in this shape. So if wave interference patterns, think it has its own cymatic image. And it also affects the air because the air comes in and bounces off. And we say these things are little and they don't matter, but they do matter. And in my recent book, Home of Power, I write about the work of Ibrahim Karim, an Egyptologist who uses ancient dowsing, and he dowses the energies of shapes. And he uses shapes, colors, and numbers of things. Numbers of the same thing is how he represents numbers. And he dowses the body to see which creates positive energy. In his work, roughly, he finds that animals and people need positive energy. Think of a battery, not good and bad. And that, you know, like wasps or nasty bugs or scorpions, ants, they thrive on negative energy. So certain types of shapes for silos, for in farming, for sacred sites, for pyramids, for healing, even healing tools or amulets, they literally create very, very tiny, subtle energy. And he had university and several science studies. So he applies shapes and colors. I mean, we're talking little decorative things, you know, in his garden. And he was able to double the crop growth in apple trees, as verified by science. Now, science can barely measure energy in your chakras, let
Mhm.
alone he's measuring components of subtle energy with this ancient dowsing. So we can't measure the energy, but we can measure with science the results. And he did it in 2 separate towns. He put these shapes up in Switzerland, I believe, and then they measured the improvements in health. And specifically, when you talk about pyramids, there's a long list of things that happen inside pyramids. Cuts heal faster. Razor blades stay sharp. Food can last 2 and 3 times as long. And I'm just remembering those, but there's probably 10 or 12 healing values that come from simply the shape of the pyramid. So that alone is going to produce a frequency pattern, subtle, meaning smaller in volume than we hear, but that does not mean not influential, as shown by science. And then based on the size and so forth, you would create energy of that pyramid that could resonate with various notes. I do believe the Giza and the Giza Plateau, most of them are pitched to F. And F is kind of an interesting note. F, if applied to colors, I would apply it to green in the middle of the rainbow, the balancing color. F is used for health, the average, the equal amounts of everything. F was very popular. It was the tuning note of China, not recent China. Lao Tzu, Yellow Emperor, China. And they felt that F was the tone of the universe. F was the tone of a Platonic year. And they would vary their F, because sound and they believe time changed frequency. So they would vary it a little bit to tweak it. But they were using all their balancing Taoism, all their stuff was all centered around an F, which you find also in the Giza pyramid. It creates the F. Another thing that's interesting, if you look at the angles of, let's say, Pythagorean shapes, an octagon, a triangle, a tetrahedron, and so forth, and you add up their internal angles, just numbers, and the numbers that they create in 2Ds and 3D, they all add up to an F sharp. When you do the same type of thing with adding up numbers in the flower of life, F sharp. And there were studies by Susan Alexander and Dr. Deemer in Santa Cruz, California, that were using photons on DNA. And they were able to measure DNA's frequency, F. So I would say that sacred temples and pyramids were located on ley lines. They're usually under the top of the crossing of waterways, so that in like your Gothic churches, they have what you call Black Virgin, and I don't know why they do use Black Virgin, but that's what they call the well in the bottom of the sacred cathedral. So you have going down really deep into the water veins, to the ley lines, and the antennae of the steeple into the air. And so they're using and creating harmony and balance, and then you come and sing, kind of like a big jackhammer taking this machine, if you will, that creates harmony, positive energy for humans and animals, and you spread it into the air, and you spread it into the ground, you spread it into the crops, you give this balance to all the life, the cows, the dogs, everything. You're lifting up your entire community because you're creating a building that produces harmony and positive frequencies. So do I think there's sound healing in the pyramid? Oh my, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we have to reshape a lot of things, architecture, medicine, oh my goodness, so many things that are really, really outdated. They do not help anybody. Yeah, unless you are one of the fortunate that make $1 billion a year from that old system. But yeah, with everything that is going on and personal preparedness and so on and so on, You know, I reached a point where I said to myself, I guess we are going through the eye of the needle right now. And then there comes a point where, you know, you can prep so much. And then at the end of the day, you know, not that I'm lazy. I have everything what is humanly possible. I have done that. And then there comes a point where I say, and people can insert whatever name they like. They can insert God or the universe or the higher self. I don't care. Then I just say, you know what? I have done what I think is reasonable and what is necessary. And other than that, somebody else has to take over the wheel. Now it's out of my hands. You know what I mean?
I
No,
do.
no.
In fact,
Mm.
it's kind of a parallel thought, but it's just been occurring to me recently. I have a lot of friends that are excited about enlightenment and ascension, and Christian friends about heaven. And it's kind of like they're all looking for that better place. And I've certainly spent a lot of my time desiring that as well, going to a place where you drop out of the density. And it just kind of dawned on me, you have 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension, 5 dimension. And many people say, oh, 5 dimensions, heaven. And we're in 3 dimension or 3, 4 with space time. And maybe creation or God or whatever it is in the void. Maybe that's pregnant and it's like got a projector in there and it creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it gets more light and less dissonance as you go out. And if you have that kind of a perspective, yes, heaven is very desirable, but so is right here. And in fact, if we really want to be close to the creative source, maybe we would maybe maybe it's not this way, or maybe this is the dimension, this is the space, and having these challenging times, being right in the center of all this, maybe this is where we create. Maybe this is where it really counts. Maybe this is where that little feeling of love and kindness and just your little world, like the butterfly effects, where it really makes a difference. Maybe the time to be around is right now, not hoping to get here, not hoping to here, not worrying about here or there, but just being in your body and being as loving as you can and just valuing that. And it's that peace and acceptance that this is good. This is where I should be. And that calm that maybe can heal ourselves and those around us.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, Jill, that was I had such a great time right now. That was really, really interesting. I always love our little talks. And I thank you so much for coming. And I know I will have to listen to this several times.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you for the opportunity and your lovely spirit, and everybody listening. Thank you.
Okay, so that was it. Night flight for today with a wonderful Jill Madsen, and we see you all next time. Until then, stay safe and sound. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.